Welcome back to the Red River Horror Podcast. This is episode number 107, and in this week's episode, we will be discussing The First Omen. So sit back, relax, and travel down those channels of fear. Welcome back to the Red River Horror Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Zakrzewski, joined as always with RedRiverHorror.com founder Eddie Caiazzo. Hi, Ed. How are you?
Don't you think?
Yeah, sure.
That was, I'm not as good as the people in Hollywood. That was that whatever the hell Linda Blair said in The Exorcist, but they're dealing with demons, antichrist, all that stuff. I'm doing great, Joe. These are my favorite kind of horror movies, right?
Yeah, the slow burn.
Slow burn.
But hey, it didn't win at the box office with the numbers being released. You just can't come at the king. Kong and Zilla took the box office was what it's showing. So
wow.
Oh well, but we're going to discuss The First Omen that we saw in theaters. It was so nice to finally get out to a movie theater. For me, it's been a minute, and for us together to see a movie in theaters it's been a while.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, I was just thinking about this, just talking about the theater experience. We saw Spiral back in the early, what was that, 2021, I'm guessing, like when theaters just started opening again, and we're just we got to get, so that's how long it's been, at least for us together. It's been a very long time, brother.
Yeah, so it was great to be like, finally, we found the time. And, it was a very early showing, so before noon showing. And so we had the place all to ourselves. So it was like a private screening of The First Omen.
It was. So I think that's what Red River Horror is going to do. If there's like 11 a.m. screenings, that might be the way to go, man.
It adds a lot to it. And the one thing with horror is, like, if you don't have a captivated audience, like an audience that wants to be there to watch the movie, it can really ruin a horror movie in theaters. Because they're just so ripe for the shouting out, because, atmosphere, quiet parts are very important to a formula for a successful horror movie. You don't need someone shouting out like, "Oh, damn!" Like, we don't need that.
No. I'll never forget Friday the 13th, the 2009. Oh man, if it was that long ago, whatever that one was, the very last one they made, that's the experience I had in theaters. And I guarantee you, like, the way I acted after that, like, or during that, to shut people up, nowadays I'd probably get shot. So
yeah. So that's been one of my aversions to going to the movies at all, and one of the reasons why I won't go see a movie on opening night. I've done it for other things where it's like, whatever, I don't care. So like Star Wars, like, that's fine. Like the Marvel movies, that's fine, because what you get is the people who are there want to be there. They want to watch the movie. They're not there to make jokes. And so that's like gave a lot of points. We were able to relax and really watch the movie.
Yes, sir. So that we had that experience, we were able to enjoy the film, take it in, understand it. There were no distractions.
None.
For us. So I guess that's where we will begin. The First Omen. Joe, we will start with your first impressions. What did you think of The First Omen?
So the first thing that we're coming, like, immediately has the opening scene has the right vibe. It's hitting, even the cinematography, just the way it was edited, had that 70s feel to it. Here we go. And one of the main reasons I referenced Star Wars before is because I'm like, just off of that opening scene, just the way it was set, the music, the way it finishes, I was like, do we have what, could be the Rogue One of horror movies? Like a prequel that has come out years later and just seamlessly nails it? That was the vibe I got right off the bat.
And I didn't know if that was going to carry over from what we saw in the marketing leading up to the film. The YouTube shorts they created for it, the quick hits you'd get when you're watching something on Hulu or whatever, when you get an ad, the way they were advertising it, it's just like, oh wow, like this. Because I'll be honest, Joe, before I saw one of those promo pieces for it, I wasn't interested at all in this film.
No.
Especially with, and we can get into these later, but I love The First Omen, the sequels, not so much. So I'm thinking like, all right, I love the first Omen from 1970. What is 6? Like The Omen. I love that film. Haven't really liked much others. So it took that kind of marketing to get to me in the first place, and that is what I noticed right off the bat. It's just like, okay, so that's we're gonna feel as if we are living in these times, the times around when the original Omen was created.
Yeah, it hit that vibe right on the head, and I will go with some great casting to start, especially so you made a joke that we were going to get a CGI Gregory Peck. So that's a good way for us to start, that this is going to be a very spoiler heavy episode.
Yes, I guess I'm glad you said that. So yes, if you're listening, because I know a few people really want to know what we thought about this film. I don't know how many people saw it, so they might want to see the film first, because yes, we are going to spoil the crap out of the first Omen.
Now would be the time to pause and wait, unless you really want to know that there is no CGI Gregory Peck. There isn't, but they did have Father Brennan, who is a fixture in the original Omen, and the casting for Father Brennan in this, I thought he looked spot on, hit his mannerisms very well. Yeah, I should have brought that up before I did it. Yeah. But hey,
but this guy's younger, right? So this Ralph Ineson, he's not younger, but he looks like a younger man. Now, he was the dad in The Witch. That's what I know him from. Yeah, so he played Father Brennan, and like you said, really, really well. And we kind of got to see that story.
Yeah, and you get a little wiggle room because it's 6 years before,
right?
Before the Omen takes place, or 5 years. So it's 1971. So it's the birth, and then he's 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's 5 in the events of the Omen. So Damien is
5 years. You can easily get more gray over the course of 5 years.
Sure.
It worked.
No, absolutely.
I don't think he doesn't. So I watched the 1976 Omen last night.
Oh.
So pretty much, I was like, all right. We did not say anything to each other after the movie about the movie. This is all fresh. So I'm glad we agreed on that opening scene.
I thought it was important, Joe, because we know and again, I am usually more optimistic about horror. With something like The Omen, because I haven't liked the sequels that much, not that you need to, but The Omen itself was the first film for me that I actually took that out from the library, the Philadelphia Library. and so it's got a special place in horror history for me, The Omen. And because it's the only one that's good, in my opinion, I was scared. I was scared of the first Omen. I'm just like, oh no. Like what can we do? But I was reassured seeing that 70s type marketing, seeing that opening shot, seeing the cinematography. I was put at ease, right? Like I kind of brought my guard down a little bit. You know, that helped.
I mean, you can just watch The Omen 2 and The Omen 3 and that'll easily make you willing to give this one a chance.
Yeah.
So at The Omen 2, Damien goes to military school. And then number 3, he's a powerful CEO played by Sam Neill from Jurassic Park.
I know more Sam. He's in that space horror movie that I like, right?
Event Horizon.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. But yes, Jurassic Park also.
Yeah. So immediately right out the gate, The Omen it hits exactly the same vibe that you get from the original one. It caught the vibes that the 2006 remake missed.
Mm-hmm.
So that was why I really wanted to go back and watch the original one afterwards. I'm like, how does this fit? Is it going to fit right? And it does. It fits. Like, I was just like spot on. The music, the atmosphere, every bit about it. And with the shattered glass, it was just like every death in the original one.
Yep. It was, and also they did use, it's Jerry Goldsmith. They did use that Ave Satani song. Like we actually got the original song from The Omen. When you see like Damien on screen and everything kind of heats up a bit.
Yep.
So that was cool as well. It again, we get that opening scene. My guard, like I'm backed off a bit. I'm ready to go. Here we are. We're in Rome, and yes, at some point that song hits at the right time, and I'm just like, okay, Like these are helping me come along to accepting this film, because you brought something up there that I had forgotten until we just spoke now. Oof, that 2006 remake.
Great casting.
Yeah.
Great cast. Perfect day for a release, June 6th, 2006.
Yep.
And it was fine. And it just, remakes are hard.
They are.
And I'll put it this way. I think of it more as like the Psycho remake, where it was almost shot for shot and really didn't
right.
drift away from. Well, so, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was bad. It's just, it is what it is.
Yes.
It had to be done.
Did it?
I guess. I don't know. Just because of June 6, 2006. But anyway, let's get into movie. So we meet our protagonist. This is, guess what we'll call her, Marguerite, who's come from the States, and she is ready to take the habit. She's ready to, take her vows to become a nun. And the big thing that we know from the original one is like there are these what I thought were satanic nuns.
I did too,
but they for the sake of story, for the sake of principle, they give them a little more depth, which is okay. I'm like, that's fine. That doesn't bother me, because where they're going to be just evil nuns in plain view? No, are they evil? Because what they feel they're doing is the best for mankind. So you get that kind of conundrum there. So they played that well, even though I could see some people thinking that that's a bad storyline to go with. Like, people are straying away from the church, and that's why we need to bring the Antichrist to bring people back to God. So that's not a bad theory. It's like, that's not bad.
So you were okay with them taking that liberty, kind of like, it's just like, listen, here's what, because the original film, Joe, the Omen, I thought the same thing. I thought they were always like a satanic sect of the church, kind of hidden, like spies almost within the church to bring about, the Antichrist. This film, The First Omen, kind of took that and changed the story into what I think makes more sense. It actually is. And this happened with another film that I'm trying to think that we saw, with the storytelling of why they want to bring out the Antichrist. It's just like, okay, that makes more sense to me. I can get that, as opposed to a satanic group embedded in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I mean, they're opposing views within. Doesn't necessarily make them good. They're not good.
No.
But in their minds, they're not evil either. So, the intention there is not to serve Satan, but rather they are, serving God the same way that they think that they should. So, I appreciated that, little depth addition, because, the original doesn't need it. But if you're going to do a prequel to it, that's what I was hoping to get out of it. Well, all we know is that they do the switch at the hospital.
Yes.
And so now it's like, now we know who and why they did the switch on there. It's like, we just want them to come out. It'll be fun on this.
Well, yeah, too, because I always thought this from the jump with the Omen. Obviously you can start recognizing some cracks in the film, as opposed to the first time I took it out of the Philadelphia Public Library on VHS, but. You do Gregory Peck accepts this fact that his child is dead, and just accept. It's just like, but we have another one. Here you go. So your wife doesn't get upset. That kind of transaction seems very,
So based on just watching it, he's reluctant.
Right.
They guilt him for his wife's sake.
Yeah.
Which that would work on me.
It would.
I think so.
Okay, because I always thought
it's like I could prevent her from going through the pain of losing a child.
Yeah.
She's not going to know the difference.
It was just surprising to me how easily transactional that beginning of the original Omen was.
Yeah.
So
that's one benefit between the original and this one, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
It's like, he is reluctant at first. The priests and the nun, they're just like, they sell him on it, because he says no. And then they, they're like, does she need to feel this way? Does she need to know that she lost a child? Does she shouldn't she have some happiness? And this one so happens to have lost his mother. And it's it's a gift from God. They get him.
All right.
There's a little more to it. Is quick, but there is a conversation. He's not all on board right away.
Okay. All right.
But getting into, we have Marguerite, who we know she's from America, and now she's in Rome. She's at this orphanage, and then they have her being, her roommate or whatever we'll call her, wants to live life before she takes her vows. And at first that seemed really stupid, but it ties in really well because it's like, Marguerite's a good girl, but she's had issues in the past with seeing visions and hearing things. And what the movie really does well is has those very slow, little quiet whispers and pop-outs for the visions.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of, who this character is, Marguerite, I think was the great, again, I'm like, all right, we're still in a really good spot here as we're starting the movie. Even though at first I thought the roommate, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
There was like a couple little pop-ups and things that happen. I'm like, okay, everything's fine.
Yep. So Nell Tiger Free, she played Marguerite in the film. Fantastic job. I guess she would be, for all intents and purposes, our main character. Comes from the USA into an orphanage and a convent in Rome during this, the 70s, a tumultuous time. There's a lot of protests, a lot of hate for the Catholic Church. And I guess, would it be Cardinal Lawrence who brought her, he brought her there. So she's been a product of, like, the church, I guess we'll say. Yeah,
she's been a ward of the church since birth. So she's an orphan herself.
Mm-hmm.
So she was raised by nuns, now is going to become a nun. Went through her issues as a child.
Yep.
The cardinal's the one who helped her, was like her father figure. And now he's so excited to have her in Rome, where she's going to be taking her holy orders. So she'll officially become a nun.
So that's Bill Nighy. He plays Cardinal Lawrence over there. So yeah, Joe, now we're at the Covenant. We're there. And some great visuals, some great long shots, very pretty. This film, the cinematography across the board, I think, was really, really good. It popped.
Just incredible pictures of, like, what we were talking about. We were talking about Ghostbusters, and you're saying like how it missed on having New York City, like the city feel, the city vibe.
It did, yeah. The Frozen Empire. It did not. So, obviously the Ghostbusters are back in New York. This is a big deal. Liked that film, but it did not. I didn't feel like I was in New York City, or like there were personalities from New York City. Like New York didn't feel a part of the story.
Right. And then here in Rome, in the First Omen, feels you get a lot of it.
Yes.
This is just beautiful streetscapes, cityscapes, art, architecture, just statues. They make sure to really bring that in. And the score is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a constant score that is just flowing with the scenery. And it's not like there's no downtime, and it really has that flow. And then after rewatching the original one, that's what they do there too. I'm just like, if this music wasn't so good, this movie would be boring as shit.
Yeah.
And the music, the way the score flows throughout the movie, really helps guide you through. That's something I really picked up on.
No, there was a lot of attention to detail, and this feels like, I so wish the folks that made Exorcist Believer, when it spoke to the people making the First Omen, if these films were being filmed at the same time, it's just like, hey, do you mind talking to these guys to see how to, really properly bring a story like this back? It was, everything seemed pretty carefully planned. And you're right, I didn't even take note of that. The soundtrack did bring us along, because I will say there was a minute where there wasn't any action. Like, we got a jump scare before we really had anything happen. You know what I'm saying? So you're right. Like, it kind of taking us along from, Marguerite's arrival to the Covenant, and then back to her apartment, where she's going to live, and in Rome the first time, kind of seeing these visuals. And we really did need all that and the soundtrack to be strong, because other than that jump scare in her apartment, it took a little while to get started, I thought.
It did, but it really came to itself, and everything was working. And we get introduced to, there was that really creepy nun who's just standing in the background, make it like, she's smiling and giggling, and then the camera cuts and comes back and she's got tears running down her face. That woman herself, just creepy, just standing there.
Yeah.
And we're introduced to, I'm forgetting the girl's name that Marguerite's starting to relate to, because she has the same issues that Marguerite had as a child.
Yes. Was that Carlita?
Carlita.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's at Marguerite is taking a liking to Carlita there at the Covenant, because she notices that the nuns have her locked away. She's locked away in the basement for no, it wasn't biting, but she was hurting the other kids. I think it was described the first time.
That's what they said. They said, like, she has outbursts.
Mm-hmm.
And so she sees them strapping her down, and then nun turns, shuts the door. There's a few things where you're starting to pick up on that something's not right.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do the whole movie scene by scene, but
no, but it's important.
These are important.
Yeah, no,
details that she's seeing things behind the closed doors, and then the doors get shut.
Yes,
and she's being watched by another nun. It's like, what the hell's going on? It's like, where are we going? And one of the what seemed like it was good, like one of the weirder, creepier birth scenes I've ever seen in a movie, because it is an orphanage and it is a convent, and they also provide single mothers health care.
Yes,
that they can give birth there, and then they probably just take their kid from them and be like, you should not raise a child because you're single. That's how it used to be. So yeah, let's go to that scene real quick. What was your thought? Because at first I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, I was not expecting a hand to come out of a vagina, let alone see an exposed vagina in a movie.
Right. That's what when people asked, that haven't seen the film yet, they asked me, oh, how was it? I said, I think if you were a mother, if you've gone through this process, this will affect you a whole lot differently than it affected me. It's very...
So I don't care what anybody says about Saltburn in that scene. This fucking scene in the First Omen makes that scene look innocent.
And that's this birthing scene you're talking about. It almost got the First Omen an NC-17 rating. So
is that a fact?
So yes. So I
believe it.
So we had to actually, what we saw was that scene dialed back, first of all.
And you can tell.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You can tell that that's the case. And I know for a fact that it probably wanted to show it pushing at the gate. As is that the right way to word it?
I think so. Yes.
I don't know how many people who listen have watched a childbirth, but it's like, it's not a smooth process.
No.
But no, like you can tell, like I could see what they cut, what they put in, because they didn't really show until the part was out.
Right.
I think they wanted to show it pushing so that you would think it was like a human child.
Yes.
So it's just like, oh, it's just a baby, and then it breaches and it's not.
So the good thing, the good horror in the real horror of that scene, that was tough.
Disturbing.
That was a tough one. But the good horror in that is, like, I guess what we'll say, like horror as a genre. We did see something like a hand coming out that was not human.
Right.
And it's important to note, I don't know if you want to do it at this point in the episode, but I think it's important to know that with the Omen, Damien obviously is the antichrist. We get to him eventually in what in this timeline will be 5 years later. It's important to know that his father is not human. And you only learned, and you do learn that in The Omen in 1976. So like at first, Joe, going into this, if you haven't seen The Omen in a little while, you might
stop you right there.
Yeah,
because that's the biggest inconsistency between the two.
Okay.
It's his mother was a jackal.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So because you're just watching, you watched it in the same day. So I'm just going by memory. His mother was a jackal?
His mother was a jackal, is what they say. And so
then the First Omen changed.
We're going to jump into that.
Okay.
Technically, his mother is a jackal. So I was been thinking about this a lot.
Wow.
Technically, his mother is a jackal because she's half jackal because the father's a jackal.
Mm-hmm.
So in what we're watching, The Omen, the First Omen is how are they going to produce the antichrist? So there was a woman who's very devout. This is all in the opening scene.
Yes.
Who volunteers her body to be impregnated by a jackal. And it's very traumatic for her. And then they have the hood over her head and her body's tied down on a table. And she says, please don't let it touch me again, before it proceeds to touch her again.
Yes.
And what we learn is that they have been trying to impregnate women from this jackal. And the problem is that they all come out deformed. They're all messed up.
Or they're female.
Or they're female. Well, they need a male. And the big thing is like, no, it needs to impregnate its own offspring.
Right.
So now we know that's how it all ties together. I'm just going to rip off the Band-Aid on the inconsistencies with the jackal part. They dig up the jackal in the first one.
Yes.
And it's not that big.
No, it looks like a dog.
Yeah. That's what you think of when you think of a jackal.
Yeah.
And in this one, I was like, just don't show it. And they got a little gratuitous with it.
They did.
Fine. Whatever. We'll just let it go.
So that was then, just so we're clear, that birthing scene, and when you watch this film, you will know what we're talking about. that birthing scenes, because yes, there is one in the beginning, but it's the one towards the middle of the film that's very disturbing. When that hand comes out of the birthing place, when the hand comes out, that is supposed to be the jackal, right?
That's what I figured. Afterwards, it's like, okay, they're making them, like that one was made to have sex with the mother of Damien.
Because I want to make sure that we're not getting that wrong, because that's what I took it. Like, it could have also been Marguerite having just a terrifying go of it.
She's just seeing things. So that's very likely too, because,
So we don't know for sure if she birthed a jackal or if that's Marguerite being like, oh my gosh, did I just see a non-human hand?
But either way, that there's those little traumatic events that set her up to be like, okay, be convinced to going out.
Yes. With
her roommate who likes to sneak out, which maybe she didn't really like to sneak out. It was all a ruse. Which I loved her character so much, not because she was such a babe, but because she just did a really good job of being like that friendliness where it's like you knew you couldn't trust her.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
You knew something was up.
Yeah. And I guessed completely wrong at the end, but we're getting there. We'll get there.
No, and that's perfectly. I thought, I was glad you were wrong, 1 and 2. I think that helps you. Like, if you can't guess what's going to happen, I think that helps you appreciate something a little more. Just Absolutely. My personal thoughts,
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Marguerite, who's never done a bad, never lived a lay lifestyle. Is that the way we want to put it? Secular? No, lay. Wow. She hasn't gone out. She hasn't gone drinking or partying, whatever. So she gets convinced to dress up, let loose. They go meet up with some dudes. They have a good time. She gets blackout drunk, wakes up, and is like, what the heck happened? And that's where we start to really get into the thick of things, because that opens up for a wonderful homage scene to the original Omen, where that creepy nun that I talked about earlier, they're out in the courtyard, and she sees, was it Christina doing some kind of art, and the woman's pregnant, and she's like, "That's not really. You don't think that's really appropriate, do you?" And that causes creepy nun to storm off.
Yes.
And she goes up, and they add a little extra something to it.
They do.
She's soaking wet. Oh.
And it's important to note here that, yes, that you think at this point in the film, when you're being taken along, you're watching The First Omen, you're thinking this girl, Carlita, who Marguerite has taken a liking to, our main character, Marguerite, the nun, or the almost nun, who she's taking, like, Carlita is being set up visually and in the storyline to be essentially Damien.
Yeah.
You know, like, so we think at this point, because of how everyone's reacting, so Marguerite is with Carlita when this happens, when this other nun storms off. And yes, we get to go ahead, Joe. It's an added bonus, we'll call it, in the realm of the Omen to what happens to the nun. That's a little weird and kind of,
yeah, and it actually gets even better in hindsight once you complete the movie.
Right.
And we'll get to that, and it's like, I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you why. But yes.
So yeah, we have Christina, who it's like, you know, that's who we think is the one who's picked to be the mother of the Antichrist. She has like the Damien kind of weirdness about her. She draws cryptic drawings, you know, with death and deadly.
Carlita.
Yeah, Carlita. And so we have creepy nun. She goes up and she's wet, and you're like, why is she wet? And then she looks down and she says, "It's all for you," before lighting herself on fire and then hanging herself. And it does the exact same hanging, drop and swing into a window. Exactly the same as the, what would you call her?
I guess the nanny in the original,
in the original one, where she says, "It's all for you, Damien. It's all for you." And she hangs herself and swings out and smashes a window. It was almost identical. They just added her setting herself on fire.
Okay, so Joe, I got to ask, how did you feel about that scene?
At first, fine. You're just doing it because when you're adding a little something to it, it's like, that's a nice homage. But after last night, I'm like, shit, it's fucking fantastic. It's brilliant. And why is it brilliant?
Please.
Because this is a huge jump ahead. And again, we're not doing a movie by movie.
No.
Marguerite was out. Christine is drawing the picture of a pregnant woman. The creepy nun says it's a boy. She says, "You don't think that's appropriate, do you?" And then she goes and hangs herself and says, "It's all for you." And the way the camera shoots it, you think she's doing it for Christina.
Carlita.
Or Carlita.
Sorry.
My bad. I'm not great with names. I'm never going to act like it. So I've said Christina, said Carlita.
I got you.
Anyway,
but yes.
So that's who you think she's killing herself for.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the movie, we know that it is Marguerite who is, in fact, pregnant. That the whole thing with her going out was a setup. She did it for the infant Damien, who was just conceived. That's who she was talking to.
Pretty cool. And I thought, Joe, the scene was effective. I think that it got me in the same way. Now, the first time, I'll tell you, when that nanny hangs herself in The Omen, that's what made me, I think, look back on this movie so powerfully, the original Omen, because I wasn't expecting that. It's just like, oh, she's got a big smile on her face. It's Damien's 5th birthday party. They're on the carousel. Everybody's excited, and she's all happy. It's like, "It's all for you." Big smile, and then boom. Out there, it's like, whoa, that was never seen anything like that. So when they did it again here, adding the flames to it, and then yes, as a part of the story, a part of the larger story, I thought it was brilliant, man. I really did.
And at first, you think it's just like, oh, okay, doing it for Carlita, but it's like, nope.
Yep.
Not in the slightest. Played me for a fool.
And that did take me same. That's what I was going to say. It took it. I thought it was for Carlita as well. I'm just like, okay. So then, like, I in my head at this point am thinking, all right, I know how this is going to end. I know what track we're on now. It's just like, now essentially we've replaced Damien, and it's the First Omen, and we're following this girl Carlita around. Got it.
Yep. That's like, you know, the cynic in us is just like, up here we go, and then she's going to be, oh, it turns out she's more powerful, and sets up for a whole series of sequels or whatever. Well, we'll see. But, you know, it felt like it was going with that really shitty, like, it could have easily have gone with that really just terrible trope that happens with sequels and prequels that are released years later, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So once again, you know, I think the best prequel ever made in a 30-year plus gap is going to be Rogue One, A Star Wars Story.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Especially because after watching the trailers for it, I thought it was going to be the dumbest thing I ever. Saw it in theaters and was blown away.
Yeah.
That's the vibe that I'm getting from the First Omen.
Ooh, okay. So we're at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, up till there, I'm just like, this is freaking fantastic. Like, let's keep riding this wave.
Yep.
And we do. And we really, it really continues with that method, because from there, that's where Marguerite's downfall begins. And I have like the older nuns being like, you've invested too much time into Carlita. We don't think that it's your time to take the habit. So now everything that she thought she was there for is not going to happen. She's been questioned, and she starts to lose it.
Yeah,
and she gets confronted by Father Brennan. As Father Brennan does, that's his role.
Very intense, Father Brennan. Very, very intense.
Yeah. he's less intense in this one than he is in the original.
Right.
The original, he doesn't even bother saying sentences. He just immediately comes in like, eat his flesh, drink his blood, take the Lord as your Lord. Like, what? And Gregory Peck's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. You want to like elaborate on this?
Can you give me like a paragraph?
And he doesn't. Accept the Lord Jesus Christ, drink his blood, eat his flesh. Like, yeah, all right.
Oh my gosh.
But so we have this Father Brennan who finds her, and I love the detective work that goes into it, because you are thinking, it seems so obvious that it is Carlita is the setup. You know, we have a picture, like the opening scene, why it's so good is because they're explaining this first baby, its intentions. All he has is a picture, and he knows, he gets to Marguerite and be like, you just got to get in there, find these files.
Yep.
This is what's happening. These nuns are a separatist group, and he's been excommunicated from them. He used to be part of them. And that is in sync with the original.
Now, Joe, just because you watched them back to back, I want to be clear there. So he wasn't excommunicated from the Catholic Church. He was excommunicated from this order, like this order that's trying to bring about the Antichrist?
That's correct.
Okay, I didn't know that. Got it. That clears something up for me. Okay.
That's the way they play it. Like, he used to be a part of them, and then he's not, and that's why he's so like, this can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's his motivation.
Okay.
So, at least you got that. And we learned more about him in the First Omen. So now we're on a wild goose chase. Like, who is this baby? We got to find him. We got to get him out of there. Marguerite is convinced that it is Carlita.
Yes.
You know, she makes her move. You know, she gets locked up in the bad room because she starts freaking out. And what caused her to freak out again? I'm trying to remember. It was
she saw the when Carlita screamed, she saw the mark of the beast
in her mouth.
Yes, because
666.
Father Brennan was telling her, it's just like, look for the mark of the beast, and she didn't see it up to that point. But when Carlita screamed, she had the 666 on the roof, bottom end of the roof of her mouth.
That's right. So that's how we're like, she's the one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's how we're convinced. So now she's screaming and freaking out. She gets locked in the bedroom just like she did as a child.
Yes.
So it gets really weird in there. Again, a great scene where we have like the burnt body of the crazy nun.
Yes.
Here, and that was just great creepy stuff in there.
There were a lot of visuals. You want a lot more modern horror movies to do what I think that the First Omen did well. I think we're on the same page up to this point. We got to get to the end, which, could change things for both of us. Again, not having spoken to one another after the film. But you have to say that 75% of that film, The First Omen, it's shot well. The music is great. The scares are worth it. They're not cheap. Everything surrounding it is really, really tonally correct.
Yeah. And we're watching Marguerite's downward spiral. One of the highlights of that downward spiral was she's walking in the street and sees, she's being driven back to the convent, and she sees the guy that she made out with at the club, gets out of the car, and then he starts running away from her.
Right.
Because she blacked out. So there's a whole gap of what we don't know. We only know what her roommate told us. So he doesn't like to do with that, and he touches his head and says, "Sorry, I didn't know," and gets another great kill, just like the original Omen. That's just out of nowhere and abrupt. He gets just smacked by a car.
Right.
That was great. I mean, all those little things were exactly like the original.
Yes, and you knew, just seeing again, having the information from the original Omen, you knew his name was Paolo. That's who she had her night on the town with, played by Andrea Arcangeli. I'm guessing he might be Italian. Hope that he is. But anyway, you knew when she approached that car, because we get to his body, or we get to him, he's alive, he's pinned up against the wall. A truck driving down the street. Now he's pinned up against a wall. And Joe, I think you felt it as well. I literally gasped. I'm like, oh no, she's not going to want to move him. She's not going to want to move his body. Yeah. And you're right. Yeah. Just like it's a freak accident, just like in the original Omen. And when she does move his body,
he's been halved pretty good.
Yeah.
So the way the camera does it with her holding him close, comforting him. He's like, I'm stuck. And she's like, hold on. Just hold on. And it does such a good job of the way she pulls him away from the car. And it cuts over to someone in the crowd screaming at the top of her lungs. Cuts back. She is just holding his, upper half of his body.
Yeah.
So really good. Really good. The one thing watching a movie from 1976 is that they didn't have as good special effects or technology that makes something like that happen. So it's not very gory. And then the gore, this one has the gore in it. And it's not excessive, but it's just right. Good job just having his entrails just hanging out.
And kudos to the special effects team, because as far as I know up to this point, I can't confirm this, but I think we're dealing with practical effects.
Yeah,
up to this point.
Going back to the joke of a CGI Gregory Peck, a lot of it, other than the fire, most of it did not look, very CGI.
No, so I think that, her pulling his body, obviously they might have green screened to take half of it away. They could have done that, but at the same time, this all looked real, legit. Yeah.
Some really good stuff.
Yep. And a good, and like you said, likening it to the original Omen, one thing that was so powerful was all these different ways that people died. The nanny, really powerful, really scary scene. She jumps out the window or hangs herself. Very creepy stuff. The photographer gets his head cut off by the long sheet of glass, just a freak accident. And we can get to another character that passes in the original Omen if we want, but this had that. The First Omen had those kind of freak things.
Everyone who dies up to this point dies in the same way from the original.
Yep.
So it's just such a good homage, great vibe, great music, and now we have this: who is it? Who done it? The mystery's ready to unravel. So she gets the escape. And that priest, they really don't give him a lot of lines. The camera cuts to him. Seems like a friendly guy. But he just had to jump. He's like, I met with Father Brennan too. Let's go get the stuff.
He was on screen for some of the film. He's involved, he's in the mix. but almost like a reverse twist type thing. You wouldn't know that he would ultimately get involved in the main story in some way. So he's not that important up until now.
Yeah. And the way, like, the hindsight of it is, like, they were kind of feeding that there's going to be more to him.
Yeah.
The way he's observing everything that's going on. That's the only time. He has very little lines, but he's always watching.
Yep.
And he's watching Marguerite.
Yeah.
So there's the connection there. She goes, grabs the files, hid the files. He finds them where she hid them, underneath that mattress. Why the nuns who were chasing her didn't look there first, I don't know.
I know, right? Yeah, she literally hides to get away because they're like, you're staying away from Carlita. We're going to lock you up. Like, she's got the files. She went down the creepy rabbit hole, found everything. Our main character, Marguerite. But yeah, she literally, I mean, this is like every kid hiding their porn magazine back in the day. She literally picks up the bed, and there is no box spring as far as I can tell. Picks up the bed, puts the files there, and then gets whisked away by the nuns.
But they make their escape, and they make it to Father Brennan's apartment with the files.
Mm-hmm.
What does it say on the... is it Scalita or like... It's a name or a word used in the original, too.
Oh, no. That's on the envelope.
It's on all the envelopes.
Yes, on all of them. Darn.
Scalina.
Something like that. I want to say yes, like Scalina.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me see. Hold on.
This is too important.
Can't find it. Whatever.
Is it? No, it's all right. I did have to look it up. All right. It's Sciana. Siana. Yes.
Yeah.
So Bambino Siana was the name written on the tombstone of Robert Thorne's
biological son in the... That's what it is.
Yes.
I was like, because they say it in there, and it's on the tombstone. It says Siana.
Right.
And that's where Gregory Peck's biological child is, and then when he opens it, it's a baby with the hole in the skull.
Yep.
He's like, they murdered him. So that's when he learns that it was a big ruse all along.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't show it in the first one, but they lean into it. They're like, there's going to be a woman, and she's going to suffer a tragedy. And your job is to convince this man. A really good job with the folder of Gregory Peck. That's where you said we're going to get a CGI Gregory Peck. And we just got a regular, just a picture of him, like a file, like they were targeted.
Yes.
So it was intentionally set up that he would be the one to take Damien.
Yes.
But back to our, really good scene with the priest, Marguerite, Father Brennan, going through those files, all the deformed babies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know what the plot is, and then we're still thinking that they're looking for Carlita. And that's where it's revealed it can't be her. There's no way that she's the one that they're going to use.
And again, Joe, it's in front of you the whole time, and you would never know.
In our face the whole time, where I shout the roommate because the roommate's there taking her holy orders, becoming an official nun. And then they start doing the weird ritual where they all lay on the floor. And there it is, the twist. And where was Damien's birthmark, his 666?
Oh, I thought that was on his head.
It is on his head.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
where do we find the 666?
Right. So the 666 is on the head of the person we're talking about. But important to note that these three, the one priest, Father Brennan, and Marguerite, they're looking through the files of this
It's deformed babies, and the one that's not deformed, that they're like, that's the one that they're going to use.
Mm-hmm.
It has the 666 on its head.
On its head. So that can't be the girl we've been following all along. Yeah. Carlita.
Hers is in her mouth.
Because it's in her mouth. That's right. Yep. So who bears the mark of the beast?
And there it was. It's been Marguerite all along. They go look at her, check her scalp, and sure as shit, there it is. So it all ties together that it's her.
Yep.
So everything up to this point, cool, but it's also where it starts to fall apart.
It felt like this was the climax. I know not to use that word.
Because the movie climaxes about 5 times,
right,
before finally calling it a day.
Yes. This to me was the most powerful thing. Like when we got to this point to find out that it wasn't Carlita and it was Marguerite, it's just like, okay. Mm-hmm. So yes.
So now the goal is they got to get Marguerite out of there as fast as possible, get to a car. They're getting chased. So obviously, the evil nuns, as I like to call them, are onto them. So whatever. Well, not breaking down the movie. We'll get down, obviously she's going to get caught because we know that she does birth the Antichrist. She is pregnant, just as predicted. That's what the night out was for, was all a setup for them to impregnate her. And it happens so fast. And this scene is there's the ending struggles. I don't know if it's the writing, if it's the directing, if it's the editing. How long after the car accident, they get into a car, because this is how she gets caught. They smash into their car. She gets out and just starts to scream and gyrate for an excessive amount of time before then her stomach begins to protrude and burst as if she's becoming 9 months pregnant in a hurry. I don't know about you, that felt way too long. It would have been, you could have cut 20 seconds off of that scene.
Sure, you could have, yes.
That's where my issue is. Stop. Just get to it. And this movie really falls apart at the end with just drawing things out that don't need to. Things happen, it's atmosphere and things happen quick. That's what's happening is like you want that, gets him to the church after being chased by the cops, has the dagger up, cop says stop or I'll shoot, goes to lunge his arm, gets shot and killed. Like the ending of The Omen happens fast.
Yeah.
And this one, it feels like we're getting there. It's like, okay, she's pregnant with the Antichrist. Let's move on. They get her down into the ritual. It's creepy. Ready to give birth. You have the archbishops there to comfort her. First, I won't let anything bad happen to you.
Yes.
Again, it's fine. Everything's okay still. But then it just keeps getting drawn out. And this is where it just goes just off the rails, where it's like, oh, there's 2 babies inside of her. 1 girl. 1 boy. It's a boy. So they all are so happy. They finally have their guy.
Yes.
They got Damien. Damien's here.
There he is.
And that's fine when they take, even trying to, add shock to the amniotic sac cutting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they pull out the... Yeah, that's another thing. You see that. They pull out the sac containing the babies. And
still in that amniotic fluid.
Yeah. So they've been yet to be removed. We see.
So that's fine.
So we see a C-section on screen. By the way, that's another. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was. Yeah. Again.
That's fine. Again, the gore. And it's like, oh, there's 2. It's just like, and that's where I was just like, oh no. Something really wrong is gonna go. Something wrong is gonna happen with this. That's going this can't be good.
Yeah,
can't be good. Long story short, that's drawn out a little bit. Then she tries to make her move, be like, well, at least let me hold him. That's a mother should, which doesn't make sense. I don't know why they would they don't care about her. She did her part. Now she's done.
Yeah,
but being the kind nuns and priests that they are, they're like, yes, let her hold, because maybe they think that she's cool now. She's cool with everything.
Yeah, she's just going to be on board. She's
not. So she takes the baby and a scalpel, and okay, obviously she's not going to hold on to him for very long, and she doesn't. So the nun waits. They make their move, and that's where her former roommate, or one character who she thought was her friend, literally stabs her in the back. So they get baby Damien out of there, and they're like, burn it all to the ground, because as we know, everything burns. Everything burnt down. and it's June 6th, 1976, 6 a.m. But we get set up with everything's burning. We have Marguerite trapped. They're like, let them all burn. And what they mean by let them all burn, it's Marguerite, the little girl, like the infant girl, twin, and the jackal. And that's where we get too much of a glimpse of the jackal, where there's a little too much the CGI fire, the CGI jackal. Would have been fine just leaving it in the shadows.
Yeah,
like, if it was like in the shadows and just like screaming because it's burning, fine. And then of course, and it's like, here we go. We have Carlita through the smoke and the flame. The 12-year-old girl rescues Marguerite and the baby, and they run off. They escape the fire. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And then it sets it up. Here's our Rogue One moment where if it ended here, great. Everything would have been okay. This is our target on the 6th day of the 6th month, on the 6th hour. They're taking the infant to the hospital. They lay it all out. Everything. It's like if it ended there, this would have been perfect. Even with the parts where I'm just like, all right. It had to do that fucking thing where we have to have this hero happiness ending nonsense. You don't get that from the original Omen, but why this one needs it, you can explain that to me.
I know. I call it the Harry Potter epilogue. That's what I call it. Like when I was finished reading the Harry Potter books, and they included it in the damn movie, of course. When I was finished reading the Harry Potter books and we got to the end, it's like I don't need to see Harry and Ginny and Hermione and I don't need to know what the hell happened to them. I'm fine. Like I don't let Warner Brothers cash in way down the line. I don't need an epilogue. So that's what I call it now. I call it the Harry Potter epilogue. So yes. So Father Brennan catches up to Marguerite and Carlita and the other baby, the girl baby that they
now
also
5, same age as Damien. So they treat it as like this was his stop before going to Britain,
right?
To go meet with the Thorns. And it's snowy, and there's this cabin. The 3 of them live in peace in this cabin, and Marguerite's gotten so wise that she knows that someone's coming, that she can sneak up behind them with a gun.
Yes. In the middle of this.
God damn it.
Yeah. No, and the thing is, Joe, we just went through this whole visceral, emotional, spiritual ride up to this point. Like, we've just had a crazy way to get to Damien getting into the hands of...
Because nothing can just be good.
Yes.
Like, you can't just be one thing that's good. It has to set up for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And you get Father Brennan. They know you're alive. They know, like, they're going to be coming for you. So it sets it up for a new side story.
Yes.
Within the Omen universe. God damn it.
Which we don't need.
Like, honestly, if it just ended with going to the hospital and here's your target, it would have been a damn near 5 out of 5 votes. It was going to go with 4 out of 5 votes, and because of this ending, it's still strong, but it's knocked back to a 3 out of 5 votes.
Wow.
That damn why? It's the same thing. Like, I'll say reverse Evil Dead Rises. God damn it. Why can't everyone just die? Why do we have to have the happy escape all the time? And that's what I was hoping for with this, the First Omen. It's like if they die in the fire and then there's the handoff, it's perfect.
Yes.
It just meets everything that the original did and leads into it. It would have been that Rogue One of horror. It was right there. Right there for the taking. And this movie just couldn't end.
Yeah.
It just had to have 3 different endings.
And it was, Joe, the total runtime was 2 hours long. It could have easily been between an hour and a half and an hour and 45 minutes.
If it was 90 minutes, there's so, like, just...
And in that last 15 minutes is what we see. We see the jackal. Didn't need to see that because, honestly, it's creepier to me not knowing.
Less is more, and he just didn't need to see this giant dog beast. Where, again, in the original one, it's small.
Yes.
But here's the thing, Ed. They can salvage it say there is a sequel, say Marguerite gets killed, and now I don't think I was like, maybe she turns into a jackal upon death and then they bury her in that cemetery, but it wouldn't make sense because she's still alive at the exact same time, so she wouldn't turn into a skeleton.
Now I'm just making sure. The only thing we see in The Omen, if I'm remembering correctly, the only thing we see is the jackal in the one grave and the baby in the other, right? Like, that's all we see. Okay, good. So, so then there's no... Yes, so we don't know what the hell happens to Marguerite. We don't know what happens to Carlita and the other quote-unquote antichrist that's not the boy, it's the girl.
They could have just left it alone. Just leave it with Carlita seeing her in the basement while it's on fire. Maybe they escape, maybe they don't. Leave it open.
Yeah.
If that's what you wanted to do and you wanted a sequel, leave it open and then open the second one with them escaping.
Right.
But I have to be like, no, look how happy the three of them are living in this little cottage.
That
and it's like, and it's what is it going to be, an action movie now with her sneaking up behind them with the gun? Like they know where they know you're alive. They're going to find. What the fuck is this?
I think this screams
God damn
of. I think this complete not scream. I think this reeks of a test screening.
I have never wanted to edit a movie myself so bad because all the pieces are there. Yeah. I would like to make the Red River horror cut.
Ooh.
First Omen.
I wonder. We'll have to ask our friend Joe D if that's legal. I mean, as long as we could do that, as long as they just take they monetize it, right?
I think if we don't sell it and just use it for ourselves,
okay,
we can do that, but we can't distribute it or try and make money off of it.
Right. So if we just post it somewhere, they monetize it, the studio, they're happy, and other people get to see how the film should have ended.
Yeah, which would have just been the hospital straight up. All you have to do is cut out that final, the Harry Potter epilogue. I like that.
Isn't that good? Seen
the ending of Harry Potter, but I know a lot of people were complaining how unnecessary that was.
It truly so the end of the First Omen, everything you're describing, what you're so pissed off about, that is in essence the Harry Potter epilogue. It's the added stuff after the movie should have ended. That really, I mean, because Joe, to make a good film, to tell a good story, you need a beginning, a middle, and an end. And
so close.
I know, and Rogue One is a great example of a movie that was able to give you a good beginning, middle, and end. The First Omen, it's a great beginning, great middle, and just it didn't end.
It wouldn't let itself end.
Yeah,
and it's like, whose fault is that? Like, why? Why couldn't you just have, like, everything else is like The Omen, except for your ending?
Yep. So,
and that's why it got knocked back to 3 out of 5 votes.
All right, Joe, you're riding with 3 out of 5 votes. I don't know how often this is going to happen, but I am with you. I am with you on the 3 out of 5. I thought the acting was great. I thought the cinematography was great. The sound, obviously fantastic. I was transported back to 1970s Rome as far as I was concerned in a big empty theater. But yeah, I didn't need to see that. And you know what pissed me off too? Actually, they're just going to treat the jackal like that. Like, yeah. So they could just say, oh, you know what? We're going to burn this thing alive. It's just like, I don't know that it
only
works
has
that
one job.
Yeah, but
they don't want to keep it.
It just annoyed me. I thought that was a little more powerful than that. I'd like to, if we're going to do this, if we're going to do the Harry Potter epilogue, I would have at least liked to see the jackal take somebody out. You know, like I just thought they disrespected the jackal is all. I was annoyed. I was annoyed on behalf of the jackal, and then there we see it.
I mean, the jackal's just a tool. His mother was a jackal. Well, his mother was a half jackal.
Half.
His father was full jackal. And whatever was buried in the ground was way smaller than...
That was the dog, Jackal.
Yeah.
the pup.
No, that was the convent dog, Jackal.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, yeah, no, I'm exactly with you. 3 out of 5 votes. Would you rewatch it again? Is this a rewatchable horror film for you?
Yeah, but I'm going to hit stop.
Okay.
And just for the Red River horror edit.
All right. We'll
rewatch it. I'm going to rewatch it so I can make notes
right
of where to cut.
All right. Yeah, no, that's a good... As long as we're allowed to do that, I will absolutely post a Red River Horror edit of The First Omen. So, but it is rewatchable for you. For me, it is too. I think that The Omen is good enough. It's a good enough of a film that, like, to really kind of go all horror on it, you could do like an Omen weekend where you watch The First Omen and then you watch The Omen again. Like, to me, that's a rewatchable duo there.
Yeah.
Together.
So, and I'm sorry, how many votes did you give it?
I gave it 3, man. Same.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's where it sits. Let's take a look of what they're saying out there in Dreadit, just because I'm curious.
Yes.
Just at a glance, going over here, a lot of it's covering expected it to be terrible, was pleasantly surprised, predictable, but really good. It didn't drag. It hit all the marks, had that 70s, 80s horror vibe. Cinematography was incredible.
Yeah.
Music's incredible. And it is. Everything about it is so good. But why? Why does this have to happen? Why? Why?
Yeah, we don't, and especially in a horror film, we don't need the Harry Potter epilogue. Don't need it.
No, and you
all.
know what? The thing with like doing the birth of Damien, not making it like some kind of Rosemary's Baby was something that I'm really happy about too.
Yes.
Because it easily could have gone that way.
Oh, gosh, absolutely. In the whole way to keep it in the 70s and keep it of the era of the kind of time that it was set, it could have easily just taken that route and made it feel like that, just even as an homage, and it didn't.
Yeah. That's more of what I was concerned about, because I didn't really see any trailers. I went in blind, and I was like, what way is this going to be, just screwed by a cash grab?
Right.
And the way it was screwed by a cash grab was, setting up a sequel. So,
yes. Although I don't know how much cash they're going to grab, though. I'm looking at Deadline as of this recording. Good folks will be hearing this on a Monday, March. Where's my calendar? No, March. We're not in March anymore, bro. All right, Monday, April 8th is when you'll hear about this. And up to that point where we see it, it brought in $8 million, The First Omen. Sadly.
Yeah. Brutal.
But
you know what that's going to be? That means it'll hit a streaming platform quick.
Right.
And then they'll gauge it by how many streams does it get within like the first month, and then a sequel will go into production if it's worth putting on a streamer.
But this is the first time we've kind of seen a horror movie. Horror movies have been hitting pretty darn well. Scream 6 took the box office the weekend it came out. Now, again, it wasn't up against Godzilla, Kong, Ghostbusters, Kung Fu Panda, like stuff like that when Scream came out last year. But Scream took the box office. All the Halloween movies took the box office, and pretty strong. I think this is our first sign. We were talking with Steve Morrison about this, about how much money horror films were bringing in. The First Omen is a bust for 20th Century, which I think is Disney now.
I think that comes down to the release date. If it wasn't released with Kong Godzilla, which does have a following, so
yep, yeah, and now it's got to go into what, the second week or first week? Now it's got to go up against Civil War, which is getting all kinds of huge. There's a lot of marketing surrounding Civil War, so there's a lot of people interested in seeing that from A24 that's coming out with Godzilla and Kong still there, with the Ghostbusters, with Kung Fu Panda. Yeah, I feel bad. The First Omen is not, domestically at least, will be a box office bomb.
Well, how much? What was the budget?
That's a good question. Let me check. Whoa, boy.
Yeah, it's $30 million.
Yep, $30 million.
Oh,
and also you got
all more the reason for the Red River Horror cut.
Yes, they actually.
If it doesn't get a Marguerite sequel, I still think it's going to.
We're not going to get a Marguerite sequel, Joe. I will. I'm going to guarantee it now. We will get this Red River Horror cut of the First Omen out there. And all will be right in the world. We'll see. We'll show you how it's meant to be seen. And even 20th Century Fox or whoever, I think they're owned by Disney now, 20th Century Studios, they will see the Red River Horror cut and say, okay, yeah, that was right. Maybe we should have ended it that way. Voila. There you go.
I really hope so. But speaking of wrapping things up, we're going to wrap up episode number 107 of the Red River Horror Podcast. The First Omen, 3 out of 5 votes. Real quick, did we confirm what the is it rotten or is it fresh on the Rotten Tomatoes?
It is fresh, but I think I looked that up already. Let me check it. Yes, Rotten Tomatoes, it is sitting at 78%.
Yep, well deserved. So other than what our gripes are, which are our gripes, and that's something that you'll hear me complain about all the time. Just begging for something to not have that Harry Potter epilogue, as Eddie puts it. So.
No, but Joe, I think it's right. I think we're right along here with the critics. Maybe we should become critics ourselves, because if you're looking at 100%, 100% is the best, 0% is the worst. We thought that pretty much 75% of the film was amazing.
Yeah, so close.
Apparently the critics did too.
Pretty close to perfection. So what are you going to do? So this has been episode number 107 of the Red River Horror Podcast. I've been Joe Zakrzewski. You know where to find us online. You can check out some videos that Eddie's been posting up from abandoned places, going out and scoping out the sites of what once was. So we'll do some more abandoned talk. We'll have an abandoned episode coming up. We can do a dig into that. Eddie, anything else you'd like to add?
Just follow, like, subscribe, that YouTube, hit the bell, all that stuff. If you help us out on Spotify, give us a follow the show so you always know when there's a new episode. Same with Apple Music. That helps us out a great deal, Joe. But other than that, if you don't check us at Red River Horror, you can always hit us up at redriverhorror@gmail.com as well. So with that, Joe, I'll say goodbye.
All right. Well, goodbye, Ed, and everybody else. Remember to keep traveling those channels of fear.